All right, let's do another deep dive. This time, we're heading to Ravenwood Asylum,
Ooh, Ravenwood.
abandoned in the Appalachian Mountains.
Isolated, creepy. I like it.
All right, it's practically a textbook haunted location.
Huh.
Like imagine this place just steeped in this unsettling history. It
Right.
almost like breathes this feeling of unease. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah. I can practically feel the goosebumps already.
So we've got research notes in the asylum, we've got local legends, we've even got a first-hand account from 4 paranormal investigators.
Oh, nice.
Emily, Clara, Jake, and Ben.
Classic ghost hunting crew names.
Right. Who spent a night there back in October 2014. So are you ready to get spooked?
Oh, absolutely. Lay it on me.
Okay, so what's so fascinating about these types of locations, these asylums and hospitals, is that the place itself almost becomes a character in the story.
You're so right. It's like the isolation, the dilapidation, the echoes of suffering, all those elements, they kind of prime us for this heightened sense of awareness.
Like almost a paranoia, right?
Yeah. Exactly. Every little creak, every shadow, it takes on a whole new meaning.
Totally. So, okay, think about arriving at this massive, decaying building just as the sun is setting.
Ooh, spooky.
Right.
Yeah.
Windows are like empty eyes staring back at you. The wind is whistling through the trees.
Hydrogen chills.
That is the exact scene our investigators walked into. And they were there to document paranormal activity. But did they underestimate what they were getting into?
That's the question, isn't it? Were they prepared for their own fear even to influence what they experience, or did they tap into something truly beyond our understanding?
Okay, so let's unpack their investigation. They split into 2 teams. Classic move.
Sensible.
Emily and Clara headed to the East Wing, a space previously used for electroshock therapy.
Oh, wow.
Can you imagine the kind of energy that might linger in a place like that?
Yeah, if residual energy exists, that would be like the spot to find it, right?
Totally.
Intense history, charged emotions.
Right, right. And Clara, right from the start, she felt this strong presence, like someone was watching them.
Okay, getting creepy.
Then they captured an EVP recording, a faint whisper saying, "Leave. Now."
Oh, no. I hate whispers.
So knowing what we know about EVP, what are your thoughts on this?
Well, EVP is so fascinating, right? Is it genuine communication from spirits or just random noise interpreted through this lens of fear?
Mm-hmm.
It's often impossible to say, for sure. But think about this. In so many cultures, throughout history, warnings and messages from the other side are often described as whispers, right?
It's true. That faint, breathy quality. Yeah.
It's almost a universal language of the supernatural.
So we've got this unsettling whisper,
Mm-hmm.
and then things escalate. As Emily and Clara are leaving the room, a rusty gurney suddenly starts moving towards them, like screeching across the floor.
Oh, hell no.
Right.
I mean, I know skeptics would probably suggest, drafts or uneven flooring, but put yourself in their shoes. You're already on edge, you're feeling this presence, and then, bam, a large, heavy object just starts moving on its own.
Right.
How would you react?
I think I'd be right out that door with them.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Jake and Ben are in the basement investigating the solitary confinement cells. They find deep claw marks like etched into the walls.
Ugh. A stark reminder of the suffering that took place there.
It's heavy.
Yeah.
Then Jake's thermal camera picks up a human-shaped heat signature just a few feet away.
Whoa. Okay. Now it's getting good.
So thermal imaging, right? It's a popular tool for paranormal investigations because it can detect these subtle temperature changes that we can't see with the naked eye.
Yeah, but it's not without its limitations, right?
Right.
A heat signature could be caused by a number of things, but in a dark, confined space like that, it's easy to jump to conclusions.
Totally. And they did jump, didn't they?
Yeah.
They called out to this figure, but there was no response. Then it started moving towards them, slowly and silently.
Oh, man. Can you imagine? You're in this dark, unfamiliar place, already primed for the possibility of, something paranormal. And then, boom, you see this human form approaching you in the darkness.
Right.
Your senses are heightened. Your adrenaline is pumping. It's a recipe for a terrifying experience, whether it's truly supernatural or not.
So both teams have had these really unsettling encounters, and they decide to regroup in the main hall, like the calm before the storm, because things are about to get really interesting.
Oh, I bet. This is where the narrative starts to take on that classic horror movie structure,
Right.
The investigators have been separated, experiencing individual moments of terror, and now they're coming together in this central location unaware of the true horror that awaits them.
And that doom arrives in a very dramatic fashion.
Yeah.
Before they can even process what they've seen and heard, the heavy doors slam shut behind them, trapping them inside the asylum.
Wow. That's powerful imagery. The building itself becoming like an active participant in the events, no longer just a backdrop, but a force that wants to keep them there.
And Clara, who has seemed particularly sensitive to the supernatural energy of the asylum, she starts to panic. She believes something ancient and malevolent is feeding on their fear.
Oh, that's a classic too. It's like that concept of an entity that thrives on fear, you know? It's a recurring theme in like folklore and mythology worldwide.
Right.
It speaks to this primal fear of the unknown, something that exists outside our comprehension and feeds on our negative emotions.
And what they encounter is truly the stuff of nightmares.
Hmm.
A towering, faceless figure with elongated arms emerges from the shadows.
No way.
The sound of like a guttural growl seems to shake the very foundation of the building.
Okay, that's terrifying.
Their equipment goes haywire, cameras glitching, LVP recorders just screaming static,
That always happens.
motion sensors blaring.
Right.
So there are theories that suggest these strong electromagnetic fields could be associated with paranormal activity, but it's an area that needs more research. Some people believe these entities can actually disrupt electronic devices,
Right.
while others think it's like a psychological response from the witnesses that causes the equipment to malfunction.
Yeah, yeah. Like a feedback loop almost. What do you think?
It's definitely a question that keeps us coming back to these stories, trying to unravel the mystery. We'll delve deeper into the evidence and the investigators' harrowing escape after a quick, well, not really a quick break. We're just going to keep going with this deep dive into the haunting of Ravenwood Asylum.
Okay, I'm ready for more. So where were we? Ah, yes. The investigators are facing down a nightmare, basically.
Totally. They had their cameras, EVP recorders, all the classic ghost hunting gear. But did that really prepare them for what they encountered?
Good point. No amount of tech can fully prepare you for a face-to-face with the unknown.
Right. So let's look at the evidence they captured, starting with that EVP recording in the East Wing. You know, that chilling whisper, leave.now.
Ugh, yeah, that whisper. So creepy.
What always gets me is how often these kinds of warnings pop up in paranormal investigations.
Right, like is it a real message from beyond, or are we just kind of primed to hear those things?
Exactly. Like, is it cultural expectation? Or is there something more to it?
It's a tough one, but think about it. Across cultures, throughout history, these warnings are often described as whispers, right? Like a secret being shared.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Plus, with this recording, the audio analysis confirmed it wasn't any of the investigators' voices.
No way.
Yeah, and there's no explanation for how that whisper could have been added in during the recording process.
So what does that leave us with?
A genuine mystery. It really adds to the whole creepy vibe.
For sure. Then, of course, we've got the thermal imaging footage from the basement. Remember, Jake captured that.
Oh yeah, with the human-shaped heat signature moving toward them.
You can clearly see it in the footage.
So thermal imaging, right, it basically detects infrared radiation. It's heat given off by objects. And it's helpful because it lets us see things we can't normally see.
Right.
But it's not always a slam dunk.
You mean it's not definitive proof of a ghost?
Not necessarily. See, warm air currents, reflections, even different building materials, they can all create weird heat signatures on camera.
So it's not a simple answer.
Nope. It's all about context. If it were a controlled environment, that heat signature might be easy to dismiss.
Right.
But when you add in the other weird stuff happening, the location, the investigators' personal experiences, it gets a lot harder to just shrug it off, you know?
Totally. And then there's that video footage of the entity itself, right there in the main hall.
Oh, yeah, the big one.
They describe this towering figure, faceless, with these crazy long arms.
Like something straight out of a horror movie.
Right. And it's so fascinating how their description kind of matches up with reports of shadow people and other creepy entities from all different cultures and time periods.
Yeah, like there's this shared archetype, you know, shaking how we imagine the unknown. But to be fair, the video footage is super grainy and really hard to see any
Yeah,
details.
because of the low light. But you can still see something there, right?
Oh, yeah. Definitely something moving around in a way that just doesn't seem natural.
Right.
But we have to consider, could it be a trick of the light, you know? Or dust, or smoke? Anything creating an illusion.
Good point.
Yeah.
It's so easy to jump to conclusions when you're dealing with the paranormal.
Totally. And on top of that, all their equipment was going haywire during this encounter. Could that be a sign of like an energy surge or electromagnetic interference caused by this entity?
It's a popular theory. Some researchers think paranormal activity might be linked to electromagnetic fields, but we need a lot more research to say for sure.
Absolutely. It's one of those big unknowns. Like if an entity could actually manipulate energy, wouldn't that be a way of interacting with the physical world?
It's a mind-blowing thought.
Right. And then could that energy also mess with our equipment, maybe even with our perceptions?
That's a whole other rabbit hole. It definitely makes you think. But for now, we need more data, more controlled experiments to really get a handle on it.
Agreed. But let's shift gears for a second. Let's talk about the investigators themselves.
Okay, yeah. They went into Ravenwood as skeptics,
Right, with their gadgets and scientific minds.
but they came out convinced that something truly unexplainable had happened. Like, they went through a total transformation.
And think about that impact. You're faced with something that just shatters your understanding of the world.
Right.
Maybe you experience real fear, that primal instinct, and it's hard to shake.
Absolutely.
It can be a life-altering event.
Totally. They described this feeling that the building itself was, like, working against them, almost like it was a living creature.
Wow.
And they finally found this shattered window in the West Wing, clambered out into the freezing night.
Desperately trying to escape.
Yeah. And it's interesting how often people report this feeling of being watched or followed in these places,
Yeah.
like hunted even.
Right. Is it just heightened awareness, our brains misinterpreting things in a stressful situation?
Right. Or could it be something more?
The million-dollar question.
And get this, as they were running to their car, they glanced back and saw that shadowy figure standing in the broken window, just watching them.
Oh, no. Chills.
I know. It's such a chilling image, and it just underscores this feeling that they were not alone in that asylum.
Even if we could prove, like definitively, that there wasn't a physical entity there, the psychological impact is undeniable. It makes you think about the nature of fear, the power of suggestion, and that blurry line between what we think is real and what might actually exist beyond our understanding.
Yeah, it's definitely a lot to process. So, Ravenwood remains abandoned to this day. Locals still tell all these stories about strange occurrences in the area.
Right.
But is it truly haunted? We've examined the evidence, looked at different perspectives, but the final question remains, what do you believe?
That's what it all comes down to, isn't it? Belief. We can present the facts, analyze the data, but ultimately it's up to each individual to decide what they believe.
So do you believe in the possibility of the paranormal? Or do you think there's always a rational explanation, even if we haven't found it yet?
Tough choices.
It is. So we've explored what happened at Ravenwood, we've looked at the evidence, and we've talked about all the psychological stuff that might be going on.
Right.
But now, the big
The
question,
big one, yeah.
does this actually prove that the supernatural is real?
Yeah.
Or could there be some kind of normal explanation?
You know, the thing about the paranormal is you can't always explain it neatly.
I know what you mean.
Like, we want antlers, we want certainty,
Of course.
but sometimes you just end up with more questions.
That's true.
And that's okay, though,
Yeah.
because the unknown makes you curious. It makes you want to explore more.
I think that's what keeps drawing us back to these stories, you know?
Sure.
You've got those firsthand accounts and then some really interesting evidence.
Right.
And you just get this feeling that Ravenwood is hiding secrets we may never figure out.
It's true. Now, what about this? Ravenwood is still abandoned, right?
Right.
All those local legends and stories keep swirling around it. Do you think maybe those stories are just making people think it's haunted? Or is there something really creepy about the place that makes those stories happen?
It's like they're feeding each other, you know?
Yeah.
The stories and the experiences, they all blur together.
Exactly.
You can't tell what's real and what's just a story.
Yeah.
But even if we try to be skeptical, we can't ignore how powerful these experiences feel, right?
That's so true. I mean, think about the investigators.
Going in as total skeptics.
Right, with all their gadgets and scientific thinking.
But they came out completely changed.
Believing.
Yeah, like something profound happened to them.
So what do you think changed their minds so much? Was it just all those creepy things happening one after another? Or was it how scared they felt? Or maybe there really was something there.
Yeah.
Something they couldn't explain with logic or science.
It makes you wonder how much fear plays a role in all this.
Oh, absolutely.
We know that when you're scared, your senses go into overdrive.
Right.
It's like you're more open to suggestion.
And in a dark, isolated place like Ravenwood,
Oh, yeah.
every little sound could be a threat.
Totally.
It's the perfect recipe for letting your imagination get carried away.
But what if, and this is a big what if,
Go on.
what if there's more to it than just fear? What if places like Ravenwood are like, I don't know, a doorway?
The doorway.
Yeah, like a thin spot where our world and something else can, I don't know, touch.
That's a cool idea. Like there are other dimensions or realities right next to ours, but we can't usually see them.
Exactly. But how do we make that fit with what science tells us about the world?
Well, maybe science hasn't figured everything out yet.
Good point.
There are still so many mysteries out there, things we can't explain with the science we have now. It's pretty humbling to think about how much we don't know.
It is, and that's what makes it so exciting.
Right.
We keep searching, keep asking questions, and pushing the limits of what we think is possible.
For sure.
The story of Ravenwood Asylum, it's just one piece of a much bigger puzzle, a little peek into this vast unknown that can be pretty scary.
Yeah. So where do we go from here?
I don't know, maybe we end up with more questions than answers.
Maybe, yeah.
But we've learned some new things, and maybe we have a little more awe for those mysteries that are still out there.
And a healthy dose of fear, too, I'd say.
Definitely. So this wraps up our deep dive into the haunting of Ravenwood Asylum.
It's been a wild ride.
We've looked at the evidence, we've thought about different sides of the story, and we've wrestled with those big questions.
The big ones.
But it's up to you to decide what you believe. Do you think the paranormal is real? Or do you think there's always a normal explanation, even if we haven't found it yet?
What do you think?
No matter what you believe, we hope this has given you something to think about. Keep exploring, keep asking questions, and stay open to all the mysteries that are out there. Just maybe not alone in the dark.
And definitely not at Ravenwood Asylum.
Until next time.